Wow, this house is cute. But can I really get in the game in this economy? I do have savings, and I am responsible-ish. Ugh, I should bury it. I'm being wild. But what if I'm not being wild, though? Could I actually score a...
Kick off your home buying journey with Zillow's new BuyAbility tool. It makes it easy to find out what you can afford, so you can get off the bench and onto the playing field with confidence. Check your BuyAbility, only on Zillow.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day. And that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Welcome to the Turnaround Series presented by CoachTube, the go-to platform for coaches who want to learn from the best. If you're working to turn a program around, you know that success isn't just about effort. It's about having the right resources, a proven plan, and access to insights that make a difference. Learning from those who have done it before, using detailed and tested strategies, can be the key to transforming your team. That's exactly what we're bringing you in this series, hosted by Michael Echaves. We'll break down key decisions, leadership strategies, and cultural shifts that have helped coaches rebuild and redefine their programs. And with CoachTube, you don't just hear about these turnarounds, you gain access to the same on-demand training and expertise that have fueled real coaching success. Let's get to it. This is the Turnaround Series, powered by CoachTube.
Everyone thinks, you watch all these movies and stuff, oh, football players are beloved. That's not necessarily true. Football players can also be some of the biggest jerks on campus if you allow them, right? Because they're all, want to be alpha males and they want to walk around and peacock and, their chest pumped out. And if you don't teach them that humbleness side of it, they can rub people really the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So and I've been really preaching, and everywhere I've been of hey, if you want people to support you, then you must give them a reason to like you. And winning isn't enough.
Today, we're excited to have Charlie TeGantvoort on the Turnaround podcast. Coach T, as we'll now refer to him, has been at the forefront of 3 turnarounds in his coaching career. First at Frederick Douglass, where he inherited a 4-6 team and led them to a 6-5-1 record while achieving the school's first playoff victory. Second at Santa Ana, coach inherited an 0-39 team and led them to a 6-4 record. He then compiled an astounding 76-30 record while leading his team to the CIF championship. Finally, Coach T's journey led him to Marina High School, where he inherited a 1-9 team and led them to a 6-5 record, followed by his most recent season at 9-2.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Coach T, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. Excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Coach, this series is dedicated to exploring and kind of doing a case study on what it takes to turn around a program. And with your experience, having done it 3 times now, as we've already kind of previously discussed, we just kind of want to delve into some kind of key components from each turnaround. And so the first question I want to ask is, what do you think is the most important thing when turning around a program?
Right. Every time I go into a program, and I mean, every time I go into a new season, as quickly as I can, I build relationships individually with those kids. And it is something we'll be referring back to throughout this entire podcast and interview, because I truly believe that, like, if you don't have that previous relationship built with a kid, they're not going to listen to you. They don't care what cover 4 is. They don't care if you're yelling at them, telling them not, walk on the field. They don't care unless you already know who they are. And, like, I immediately sit down with every player I can, have those player coach interviews, get to know each other. And the quicker that bond's made, the quicker I can move on to the next step.
Yeah, coach, that's really interesting. So, the turnaround process is so interesting because usually it takes 3, 4, 5. In my case, it's taken 5 years. In your case, you've done it within 1 year. Are there like specific strategies that you've taken to accelerate that relationship building?
I think individual one-on-one meetings at first is really good too. Like, so you can do like a group meeting and a leadership meeting, and a lot of people do that, and those are great to do. I do those as well. But, the individual is really where you get to know kids. And I make sure, like, I don't ask like, hey, do you like running power or zone? I ask, hey, do you have any brothers or sisters? What are some of your outside of football likes? Like, what do you do on Saturdays? Because if you can't tell me, your kid's sisters, then you don't really know your kid. So I try to know as much as I can personally about them. So that way I can ask them personal questions, because if someone knows you or not based on the questions they ask you when they see you. And I'm like, hey, how's the weather? How about that fall? Like, we probably don't know each other very well, but if I can ask about your daughter and like, you've paid attention, you know who I am, you've cared enough. And that's a way, without me saying I care, I show I care by, how I talk to them in the question and, what I know about, and through that, it just, with any relationship, right? Whether we're dating or whether we're, coach player, like, when you ask those type of intrusive questions to like get to know a person, they start bonding with you. And I think that's one of the things that coaches can do the best, is just get to know them outside of football as fast as you can, as much as you can, before you start to try to get them to know on the field. Because the field is the easy part. Is, like, we all know football, but do they care about what you're saying?
Yeah.
And so that's all done off.
So, coach, you're scheduling, like, I'm imagining when you're taking over these programs, you have to set up boosters, you have to set up your coaching, you have to set up your classroom in some instances. So the first things you're doing is scheduling these one-on-one meetings.
Right.
And you're dedicating that time to it?
Yeah. And, I literally will have a sign up sheet, I'll do, 30-minute blocks. I'll do like, hey, I got 30 minutes. I got like 4 before school. I got a lunch. I got, and then after whatever lifting or practice, whatever, as long as I'm allowed to stay here before my wife calls, like, I'll do like 4, 5, 6, after practice. And it's like, and even Saturday, like, you can come in on Saturdays, and like, these are all things that you could do. It's just, do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Like it's just time, it's time and effort. It doesn't take, like, I don't have to be really good at, knowing cover 4 to schedule meetings. I just have to be willing to do it.
I love that. Coach, what are some of the main challenges you've faced when you've taken over programs?
So, like, the 3 schools I've been the head coach at are pretty different. I mean, Frederick Douglass is the middle of South Central Los Angeles. We practice at a park right next to our rival school. Like literally, like, you could see the rival, like, your hardcore, we hate you rival practiced on that side of the park. And I'm like, is that a rival? And they're like, yeah, coach, they practice over there. I'm like, ooh, it's a little different. And then Santa Ana, obviously, completely different area, very like Hispanic community, but very cultural, like just everything. And then now Marina, it's like even just from the beach, and, demographics and socioeconomics. And the 3 are, while they're extremely different in very many ways, but they're also teenage boys. And like, they're all like, teenage young men, boys trying to become young men. And and I was a teenage young man once, and I try to think back to, like, how did I want to be talked to? What did I want to talk about? What made me like coaches and what made me dislike coaches? And, I just kind of use those things. And then it's okay to like learn about other areas and stuff. Like, I didn't go into South Central without really taking the time to learn about South Central.
Yeah.
Right. Because, like, I was the first Caucasian, coach in their school history. And, like, they're like, I was the white guy at the park.
Yep.
And but it's just a proven that if you go in genuine, you can go to 3 different areas and you just like, hey, this is who I am. I'm not trying to pretend. And no matter who they are, the kids like genuine. They like people that go out of their way for them and people that are there to help them. And, you can use that same strategy and just tweak it a little bit in very different environments and very different areas.
Yeah, which is so interesting because, you're in Santa Ana. Obviously, I worked there as well and not in South Central, but I've worked at a similar school to Marina in Troy. And I think the demographic is more similar than not. But it's so fascinating how you've been able to gain the respect of players. And I think what you're saying is it's coming down to authenticity, genuineness, and time that you invest in relationships.
Yeah. And, I remember one of the first things, like my first day at Santa Ana, okay, I think I had like 12 kids show up at practice. And then like the second day, third day, and fourth day, and a couple of players, like I came like that fifth day and they're like, are you going to be here every day? And I like looked at it, I'm like, and they're looking, and I'm like, oh, wait, you're actually asking? Yes, I'm going to be here every day. I'm like, dude, that was a real question. Yeah. So, it's also like, like that's what kids want though, right? Like, even if you don't know anything about football, if you're there every day and working hard in front of the kids and not belittling them and just, showing them the respect, and they gravitate towards you. Like I know some coaches are extremely well liked and I know they don't know anything about football. Like, they're like, ooh, but they're so well liked to where their kids play extremely hard for them. Yeah. Because like they can run ISO every play and they're going to go really well because there's such a player coach bond. The coaches don't have to be geniuses. They just have to be authentic and genuine.
Yeah, we're going to get to that because that's one of the most intriguing things I think you've done in your career is surround yourself with great people. Before we do that, how did you shift? This is one of the most fascinating things, especially at Santa Ana. I think Marina too, because it's a little bit down and out. I'm not too familiar with Frederick Douglass, but the mentality from we can't win to we can win. What were some strategic steps you to achieve that mentality?
You being a coach so long too knows like one of the hardest things is that kids are believing that they can actually win. And it's like they don't believe it, even if you tell them until they actually win. Yeah. So it's like we can do it, but until they actually get that little bit of success, they don't really believe it, right? In their hearts, they're like, yeah, coach, let's go. But we always, because I can't remember. Or so what? Santa Ana was 1-49 to 5 years, right? Before I got there. And they weren't much better before that, right? Yeah. They hadn't had a winning season since the great 80s when they had Dick Hill as the head coach. Yeah. And we're playing modern day in the championship, right? Yep. Like, so it was like a built-in we will lose kind of belief. Yeah. You can call it culture, you can call it whatever it is, but the kids just believed that they were going to lose. Like, they're like, we're going to play hard, but we're going to lose. And so, like, you have to that's why like off season is very important in building like competitions within practice and creating, scenarios or whatever to where there is going to be winners amongst your team. Right. So first we start with little things like one-on-one, like not like one-on-one, like football wise, but just like one-on-one, like tags or tug of, push-up competition, tug of war, little things where there's winners and losers. Well, yes, there are losers in these things, but there's also a winner, right? And with that kind of idea, you slowly kind of get kids to want to win and feel win. Yeah. Because if a kid never has felt what it felt like to win, they don't really know what you're talking about. So you have and that's why like I'm so as you know, I'm so very strategic on my passing leagues, right? Like I only go very amount and I pick teams for different reasons. Like this team is going to challenge us for this. This team is going to help us succeed in this, right? This team is, I don't just say, hey, can I come over? I know that you have a big receiver that we're going to have to really tee up on last couple of years. Because, that's like we're going to play a couple of those guys in the season. And if we've never successfully played against that before, how are we going to have it? So I think there's opportunities in practice and Saturday and everything, even like do film study and I'll do because I'm a teacher as well, like I'll just do like a worksheet with the film. I'll be like, okay, what number was the offensive guard, and they're like, oh, shoot. and so whoever gets the highest scores, off that little quiz off the film get celebrated. And those that don't, well, they don't get celebrated. So they get that feeling that I'm a winner and I can win from everything we do. And then you pray you get a win early and then, get the season going.
I love what you said there. I think, when we do those little competitions in the off season, there's a winner and a loser, and we always focus, there's a loser, but there's also a winner in those scenarios. And that's the thing we got to,
right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a great question. Where do you feel there was pivotal moments in your 3 turnarounds? Was there any similarities in them? Anywhere where you felt like, oh man, this really accelerated our trajectory
right.
at whatever school you were at?
And it's, like you said, like you want to get a win early, going into Santa Ana, I was a head coach. I was a defense coordinator for many years before that, but I was only a head coach after I done this to 1 year. It was a charter school and they shut it down. And so when I went to Santa Ana, they were 1-49 and I had confidence, but many coaches before me tried it and failed, so I'd be lying if I didn't say, that's them. I got this. I was like, okay, I'm going to do all these things. And then that first game was like, please let us win. Please let us win. I didn't know if I was going to go win 10. Like, you never really know.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you think, right? You think, especially when you're starting out. I have a lot better grasp on what our record's going to be, nowadays.
Yeah.
Like before the season, like I can tell you within a win or two what we're going to do. But when I first started, I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God. Like, I hope I'm doing it right because I don't want to be 0-10. Yep. Oh man, is it too late to go to medical school? Hey, so, but it's just like getting and going back to scheduling properly, like that scrimmage is usually when I really can get a good feel and I get the kids. Because even a scrimmage, I set it up to where I know, like, depending on what my talent is, like, I know certain sections that I put in the scrimmage that we're going to win. Like, I just know, like, and I'll let them have their part too, like the other school. But I mean, if he doesn't care, I don't care. But, like, okay, I know we're really good and I'm going to purposely set them up for success and let them feel it, especially if the team is like inexperienced or used to losing.
Yeah.
You want to set them up for like, yes, am I stacking the deck? Yeah. Is it really challenging them? No. But is it giving them a sense of winning? Yes. And I remember, like, in Santa Ana, we scrimmaged Savannah the very first year I was there, and they had giant kids. I mean, Savannah's always got these weird, just crazy athletes that, like, just randomly show up. And we went there, and my kids were like, okay, time to lose. They're bigger than us. We're going to lose. Like, let's lose the scrimmage and go home. And, I kind of finagled my idea of how we're going to set the scrimmage up. And we had a couple great plays, and they're like, wow. And then we got back into normal scrimmage, and they had that confidence. You could just see it. I'm like, they scored a touchdown, right? So like, if you get like a cheap touchdown early, then they know what scoring feels like. Because like a lot of times, like you go into like an event, you're like, these kids just wanted to score a touchdown. That was like their goal.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we got to score more than one, So little things like that, and and it's knowing your players, like knowing what they need, because some teams need a lot of like confidence building, and some teams need like, hey, put them against Long Beach Poly every play and let them get beat up, and because they can take it and they understand what you're doing. And some teams need to go against, the Sisters of the Poor, and so that way they can get confidence and know that they can do it.
That was the fact you brought that up. I completely forgot about that until you were talking. But you guys would scrimmage Long Beach Poly, and listeners, if you were to understand the tradition of Santa Ana High School compared to Long Beach Poly, it is literally night and day on completely opposite sides of the spectrum, wherein Santa Ana should never compete on the same field with Long Beach Poly. And I remember seeing your release of your whatever, your comments on thanks for coming Long Beach Poly to because it's at Santa Ana. I'm like, what is Charlie doing? What are you doing scrimmaging Long Beach Poly? And tell me your thoughts on that.
And one, you have so the coach at the time, Steve Barbie, who just resigned with his family, but you have to have I couldn't have done it unless you have like a good counterpart in their head coach. Like he wasn't, could they have scored 1,000? Probably, and he wasn't going to let them do that. And I knew that. So I had that also going, but it just, and especially, you have a relationship with the coach as well. Like you have to have relationships with your fellow coaches, to get the correct work. Right. And he knew what I was doing. He knew why I wanted it. And we competed and we went really hard. And at the first couple times we did it, we did it for just the fact that, like yourself, you saw, like I posted it everywhere. I put it on every social media account because people said, wow, Santa Ana can practice against Long Beach Poly.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, then Santa Ana Valley must be nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Like if they can compete the Poly, then man, they can definitely compete against Century.
Yeah.
That's what it was, because like, there's so much psychology that goes into, getting the kid ready to compete. And like, literally that's like, hey, I could have paid anyone just to wear a Poly shirt. You're like, hey, just come wear a Poly. But it's like, so you can always refer back to like, hey, you guarded that 5-star that went to Long Beach Poly.
Yep.
You're telling me you can't guard that guy? Like, you can guard Seagram kids. Like, remember what you did against Long Beach Poly? And all these are schools, local schools that I'm naming. But yeah, so, it gets you because that wasn't for our comp. That was more for yes, you might not win that day, but that losing that day gives you the confidence to win the next.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Coach, here's a great one. And we've kind of spoken about this beforehand, but when you're taking over a program, you're going to have negative attitudes. It's kind of pervasive. Kids are getting uncomfortable. And I think one of the greatest things you said so far is that kids are kids, we have to remember that. But how do you handle conflicts with players that have negative attitudes? As all of us know, as we're taking over a program,
right?
It's a big challenge. How do you handle that specifically?
You have to have patience. You have to be able to not react, right? Like, I was just talking to a coach today, or yesterday, that I was interviewing, the scene. The big thing I told him, like, hey, if you scream and cuss or whatever the kid's going to do two different things. One, he's going to scream and cuss back at you. Okay, now what? What are you going to throw down? You're going to fight?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right? Or, right, he ignores you. But what he's not going to, and just doesn't do it. But what he's not going to do is, oh, I see it your way. So, like, he's going to either shut down or he's going to react poorly back. And either way are lost. So, especially today's kid, they don't want that. And I don't want that. Like, I don't like it when, if the principal came in here and cussed me out in front of all my students, right? I feel embarrassed. I feel mad. I feel all these negative feelings. I wouldn't feel like he's right.
Yeah.
So, got to be patient, got to understand teenagers mess up. And then it's also important, like, to, bring them aside, talk to them with a calm voice. Because if my voice is going crazy, they feed off just that energy. So if my energy is calm, then it's more likely that their energy is calm. And, especially I've had a couple players this year that just emotions, and it's just like, hey, let's breathe. So before I get into them about why I'm angry or their bad attitude, like, hey, let's take breath. Let's calm our brain down. Let's turn our back to whatever is triggering us.
Yeah.
Right. Because most of the time it's like that guy, that kid did this. And they're like, hey, let's not look at them. Let's turn around and look at the tree or the leaves or the sky or the clouds or something. Right. And let's take away visually and verbally all the things that are triggering this attitude. And then, kind of talk to them. And that's if like something there has triggered them. Sometimes you just get a bad attitude from whatever. And, every case is different, but I remember I said, I'd have kids that come in and like, I want to quit. And I'm like, well, you can't, we only have 12 kids and, you can't quit. We don't have enough for you. Like, give me a couple years and then you can quit. But, I don't have enough to do team if you quit. But it's just, they didn't understand because even here, Marina, and I tell everyone the culture's changing, but it's not changed.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got to keep on building, and I'm going to have reactions, especially when times get tough. Right. It's really easy to coach kids when we're winning. Right. But when we're all of a sudden down by 20, right. That culture, if they don't have that built-in culture of we can do this and stay positive, they revert back to what's easiest. And it's a lot easier to be negative than it is to be positive, and so they go back to negativity and that's when you really have to kind of put out fires as you see them, right? Try to not let things escalate. You see things corrected as soon as you see it, take them aside as soon as you see it. And then if it didn't get corrected during the practice, you got to talk to them after practice or even call them up after, I've called kids after, let them go home and then hey, jump on the call real fast. Let's talk about something, because you don't want to let it fester and become worse tomorrow. The quicker I can fix it, the quicker whatever it is can be in the past and we can move past it.
Yeah, I love that.
What if you could get inside the heads of elite coaches and championship leaders, learning their strategies, techniques, and philosophies anytime, anywhere? That's exactly what CoachTube delivers. This isn't just another video platform. CoachTube is a technology platform built for coaches by coaches, giving you on-demand access to detailed, proven instruction straight from the best in the game. The courses you'll find here aren't created by a production company. They come directly from the coaches, state associations, and charities like Lawrence First and Goal, sharing their expertise to help others grow. And when you purchase a course, you're not just improving yourself, you're supporting those coaches and organizations who are giving back to the game. If you're a coach with knowledge to share, CoachTube makes it easy to create and distribute your own training content. Teach what you know, help others coach, and build your brand. Visit CoachTube.com to explore courses or reach out to me, Keith, at CoachTube, if you're ready to share your expertise.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Fresh kicks, spring tops, new dresses. There's always a score.
I mean, the denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Head to your Nordstrom Rack store to find can't-miss deals on all the spring things. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Coach, you mentioned already your coaching staff. How do you go about assembling your staff to support the transformations that you've had?
Well, I like to think I offer them amazing opportunities to grow as coaches and men. They'll tell you that I trick them, and they're like, because, and I've been it's funny because so my defense coordinator, my first defense coordinator at Santa Ana, that was the head coach at Fountain Valley these last 5 years. He's been a head coach. My second defense coordinator at Santa Ana was the Orange Lutheran defensive coordinator. I convinced him to leave Orange Lutheran to come to Santa Ana. And, that's pretty, he's still he's a great coach, a great guy. And he's still man, he's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. You just, I'm like, I'll never tell. But the offense coordinator that I eventually hired there is now the head coach. He was at Santa Ana. Now it's at El Segundo, head coach. Our running back coach is now the head coach at Santa Ana.
Yep.
And even at Huntington, he was when I was to DC, he was our corner coach, and it's cool. And trying to think, I know there was one more I can't remember, but and then a couple more assistants that I've had are applying for head coaching jobs. So it is important to find guy. Oh, and then of course I point to his desk. Now I've got Aaron Johnson, who's one of the best defense coordinators in the nation at the high school level. He's won 16 Seattle championships at Modern Day, and sorry Modern Day, thanks Modern Day. And he was my head coach in high school, but so we had a lot of previous connections. But I mean, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. So having good assistants obviously makes your life really well, but also some of them came in great, and some of them never coached with me before or have never coached. And so I think coaching your coaches and using very similar techniques that I've talked about with the players, use them on your assistant coaches too. Got to bond with them, got to talk with them. If you see something you don't like, don't let it keep going, right? Don't belittle your coaches in front of everybody, but do talk to them about it. Yeah. Have private conversations with them. I think I've only actually dismissed one coach in 13 years as a head coach. Right. Coaches have come and gone for various reasons, but I've only actually had to dismiss one coach in all that time as far as you're not coaching here. And I think it's more that's just because they know what's expected, just like players know what's expected, and they either like it and get better at it or they move on themselves, and so that way I end up eventually with a bunch of guys that like doing the same things, the way I like doing them. And, I think it's also important to not, when you listen to your coaches, their ideas, listen to them. And if you don't agree though, tell them why too. Don't just say no, hey, this is what I want to do it my way. Explain it to them, and they still might not see it, but that just also tells you well, then, might want to coach with me, but explain yourself. Let them know what we're doing. Don't keep secrets. Hey, why are we meeting here? Hey, I meet with him like this. I meet with this receiver one-on-one, and these four receivers together because this receiver can't get along with that receiver. There's reasons,
Yep.
And so my assistants need to know that, so that way they can be extensions as opposed to, opponents, But yeah, I've been really blessed, and Santa Ana was really good to me as far as letting me hire teachers.
Yeah.
Like we ended up, I think, 12 teachers on campus that all play college football. I mean, that's a blessing. I couldn't believe it. Mr. Bishop, shout out to Jeff Bishop. He retired and, didn't go well, but, he, really, like, you have to have administrative support, right? Like without Jeff Bishop as my principal, a lot of things would have been a lot harder at Santa. Would I still have had success? I like to think so, but he really enabled my success, right? Like he enabled me to hire the right guys. He enabled me to have the field when I needed it. He enabled me to build the weight room. He enabled me to redo it's not like I just had a, rich benefactor doing these things. Like, you have to have an admin fighting to get those funds. You have to have an admin fighting to get those positions filled by coaches. And, and then I have to do my part and do my vetting of like, don't bring in just any coach.
Yeah.
Because if I bring in a history teacher as a coach and that guy is a horrible teacher and a crappy person, well, I burned the whole history department and they will never allow me to hire another coach.
Yeah.
Like, well, this one's really good. Like, we don't want him in our department.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people don't understand, like, hey, departments have say and like you have to have their backing, like the math department, English department, as much as anything else. And so you got to be very careful of who you bring aboard, especially if you're going to get a teaching job. And coaches that like on staff, teachers on your campus as football coaches, I mean, the more I have, the better the program will be.
Yeah.
And that's my huge belief. Like I put just as much energy into hiring and finding those guys out there and finding the right fits. And like, I know everybody on our campus and how many years they are away from retirement. I'm like, hey, and then like I see someone like, hey, I noticed on Facebook that says you might be moving to Arizona. Any truth to that? And what's your credential? And like, what sections do you teach?
Yeah.
And so, and it's also really good that it comes back to relationships with coaches. So when I have a math job, I never post my job openings like on CIF. I don't need some random person sending me their resume. I ask people I know and trust of like, hey, do you know anyone? And if you do, have them send me your resume.
Yeah.
But at least, like I don't need to like get ready. And it might be tough when you're first starting out, but unless you just moved in from the area and don't know anyone.
Yeah.
Right. Like someone, like we all know someone and you just build it. You build your own network. And even if you were new, like look who's winning, call that coach up and ask like what their recommendations are, and for the most part, high school coaches are pretty cool. I mean, there are a couple, we won't talk about what color jerseys they wear. We all know.
Coach, going back to that kind of community part, the on-campus part, teachers and even parents, how have you strategically included them in the process of turning around the program? Let's start with teachers and then community. From there, or does it happen organically where you're like, okay, if I get the kids in line, then other stuff is going to happen?
Right. And, I was just talking to a parent earlier today. Like one of the best comments I'm getting here at Marina is just like the teachers are saying like, hey, we like the football players.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks, you watch all these movies and stuff, oh, football players are beloved. That's not necessarily true. Like, football players can also be some of the biggest jerks on campus if you allow them.
Yep.
Right. Because they're all, want to be alpha males and they want to walk around and peacock and, their chest pumped out. And if you don't teach them that humbleness side of it, they can rub people really the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and I've been really preaching, and everywhere I've been of like, hey, if you want people to support you, like, then you must give them a reason to like you.
Mm-hmm.
And winning isn't enough. Yeah. Right. Like, like you'll see some of these teams, like I was watching, this last season and the semifinals even, like you watch on NHS and the stands are empty. And, that tells you, well, they're in the semifinals and still nobody on their campus wants to go to their games, and that tells you something. Like they might be talented, but are they doing all the other things? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tells you it might have been a good year, but their program probably isn't going to be sustaining that win and sustaining that success because they're not teaching that like pride, that success, in the kids, which the teachers aren't seeing and wanting to be around. And people, in anything, whether you're making friends or dating or whatever, like people that smile, that are nice and genuine. And you can be a dog and vicious on the football field, but if you're a dog and you're vicious in second period math, it doesn't go, right? And if you're smiling and happy on the football field, well, that doesn't go either. So, you definitely have to have that light switch of when to turn it on and when to turn it off. And with that light switch, I think people respond to, especially teachers, because teachers count on athletes to help set the tone in their classroom. Right? Like, not every teacher like has that strong, hey, you better do what I say personality. They just know their subject matter. And like, they rely on the athletes to help set the tone of, hey, we're all going to be quiet and respectful and listen to what I'm teaching you. But the athletes could also be the problem, because for better or worse, people follow athletes, especially, football players. And if your football players are jerks, they can wreck the whole class real quick. And if your football players are like, hey, guys, come on, then everyone's like, oh, okay, real quick. So you give the teachers that, then the teachers want to support you, because it's not like convincing them what to do on a Friday night. It's convincing them, do they like their students enough to come and watch them on Friday?
Yeah.
Right? If they don't like them, they ain't coming.
What about the community support, the parents and boosters even?
Right. And I think once again, like, because I've been at 3 very different areas, it's also knowing, right? Knowing what's realistic, what's like, I'm not going to demand this type of volunteer support if I know you're working all day, right? Like that's stupid. Like, I'm not going to demand like if my kids are working extra jobs to like, help pay for the rent, I'm not going to demand you go sell cookie dough door to door. Like, so I'm going to, know, I'm going to know what I'm coming into, and I'm going to have a, and I do that from meeting with parents and talking to community members, and like, just ask respectful, but, questions of like, hey, what works? What doesn't? What are your ideas? And, you got to be careful with parents. Like, they'll tell you all their ideas, but they also like being heard too. I see all these horrible fan behavior videos on YouTube and this and that. And we don't have that much because, one, like, I get to know them. So I turn around and be like, hey, John, I'll take your kid out. Be quiet, so you got to know who your parents are. Right. And you also they all have my phone number. Right. They all know where my office is. My door is always open. They can call me, text me. Now, I might not, be as responsive depending on what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
But all I answer like, hey, and they're like, well, why didn't Johnny play? Well, Johnny isn't as talented as the person in front of him. And in football, right, your playing is based on your talent.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell them, face to face. Like, I'm going to tell them, like, I'm not going to like let it fester there either. Like, you talked about bad attitude with kids. Well, usually that before the parent blows up on whatever during the game, right, and does that stuff, it usually festered, and there's usually like something going on that's making that relationship or that parent angry beforehand, and they just haven't said, and many times they haven't said anything because they don't feel they have access to their head coach.
Right.
It's like, well, I have access. You can access me almost too much.
Yeah.
And I'll listen to you and I'll have patience and I won't respond negatively, but I might not agree with you, but I let you have your say.
Yeah.
And I think most parents just want to, have their say against their kid, right? So they want to they want to know that they were heard, and they also want to, see what I do, how I am, right? Like, they want to know that when they let their kid be with me for 5 hours, that they're putting them with someone that they are okay with, that their values match up with, and that's how also I have to put I can't hide from the community. I have to put myself out there. I'm like, like St. Anne was a prime thing. Like, I mean, I went to Memorial Park. I went out. Like, I went to all the places. I went to the handball courts over in Del. Like, I went to the places to where, maybe not a lot of people went to. Like, even when I was at Fair Dulles, like, a lot of my kids lived in Imperial Gardens and Nickerson, and so I would go to these different places, and they had basketball games, and I would go and meet them at their house, and and just let them know hey, I'm not nervous about being here around your house. I'll meet your family. Okay, now what? Here I am. You have any questions? Because if you go to the park or somewhere away from school and you see these parents or these families or whatever, hey, here I am. Anything?
Yeah.
No? Cool. But then you can't come back at me and say later because they're like, oh man, I had a chance. Well, now it's on you.
Yeah.
You didn't say anything. Don't be yelling third down to throw the ball when I gave you your opportunity to talk to me about it.
You said about the parents will confront you at times to see how you react because they want to know who you are. And I think that is a fascinating thing to think about in regards to parents, because you're right. They are entrusting us with a lot, and they want to see what you're like in conflict.
Right. And I mean, hey, you can read the paper almost every day and see some weirdo coaches out there doing bad stuff with kids.
Yeah.
And so and you see the picture of the coach and you got a hat on and a logo, right? Like, it's not like they wear a sign that says, "Hey, don't trust me."
Yep.
Right. So, so I don't blame parents for wanting to know who I am more detailed.
Yeah.
I don't blame parents for wanting to know any of their teachers or coaches. Like, they should get involved. They should. And some don't have time, but I like them to all know that, hey, if you do, I am here. If you do want to come and talk with me, sure. I think through those relationships, and that's just how you let it build organically through that way. And just, I mean, same with the teaching too, like, right? Like, I say good morning to everybody. I walk around, just be pleasant. I mean, I think if people are pleasant, allows people to kind of come to you, and talk to you about whatever it is they might want to talk about.
Yeah, Coach, I have another question for you. It's going to kind of change the trajectory a little bit, but I want to, as you're rebuilding a program, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of emotional burdens that come along. Do you have any, and we can edit this out if this isn't the case, but do you have any moments, stories, examples of when you were down and out or frustrated or despondent at some of the rebuilds that you've had? And can you share some?
Yeah. And, I think I really, without knowing, I really put myself in like a great learning path to become a head coach. Right. So my first assistant job right out of college at Plano, Utah was at Laguna Beach High School. Right. Like, you sit on that top, star, you can eat your lunch and watch the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, and then, that was before Shanahan, so he's done a great job. But back then it was the 6'4", 230-pound muscle kids went to water polo practice.
Yeah.
Right. So I got the kids that were a little better than the PE kids, and so they changed a lot football wise there. But I mean, that's right. Probably one of the most wealthy places in the world. Right. And best. And then, I went to Huntington and then went to Compton Centennial for a couple of years.
Yep.
Because I want to challenge myself, So I left the beach where I kind of grew up, went to Compton Centennial, and that's North Compton Watts, right? And then 1 year at Carson, then I'm like, I want to be a head coach, and I took over Frederick Douglass at South Central, and it was late spring and summer, a lot of practices, it was just me in a park.
Yeah.
With like 40 plus kids.
Yep.
So I had to be creative. Like, I had to think about like how to run practice. Like, how do you run practice? So I would do like, okay, that's the push-up station. That's the sit-up station, right? That station is like doing sprints, on their own. And then I would do an endo station. So I get to O-lineman, we do endo, 10 minutes, switch, O-lineman, go there. Now I'm doing a running back station, switch. Now I'm doing a quarterback. And like, so I ran, 10-minute endos with each endo while the other, positions were doing their own thing. And like, just having to figure things out like that and in places that like, I was a little like, too confident maybe. I was like, hey, like, everybody loves me. What's the worst that could happen, So, but like, but I went in and I think people liked it because like I just walked up and started setting up cones. And there, people, that were in the park a lot would ask me, what are you doing? I'm like, we're in practice. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know I wasn't supposed to ask that, So, but having to do that kind of stuff and then, really kind of gave me the confidence later on to where I came back to Orange County at Santa Ana, kind of like, oh, like, hey, if I have assistants, great. If not, I can run it by myself. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Wow.
Like, I have, like, it's not going to get any harder,
Yeah.
like, it's not going to get any, more adversity or obstacles around me. Like, so I got that confidence kind of with me and then, build it. So once I had my confidence and that I could kind of do it all and, get it going, like it really, I think, let the kids around me to be confident because they're like, I got one coach and 40 kids. Like, those kids are pretty could like to me like if I wasn't organized and I didn't have a plan and I didn't like everything organized and moving when it was supposed to be moving and have everything set up before they got there. Like if I was strolling up at 3:05 for a 3:00 practice, no, I'd get there an hour plus, couple hours early
Yeah.
set everything up. So when they walk up, they know, okay, oh, shoot, it's organized.
Yep.
Like, yeah, get to your station, right? Shut up, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's not like, I'm not going to just talk to one kid or run team, like, like so many, like team is important, but so many programs will do team for like an hour. Well, that's 22 kids, right? Like, what's everybody else doing? So man, my ex quarterback just walked in, trying to bother me on a Friday. Hey, let me see. But he just returned his game jersey. It's only been 2 months late,
That's awesome, Coach.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. So it's just having everything set up, having the confidence in myself of like what to do, when to do it, and I think when the kids know that like there's a plan and know that I'm confident in my plan, I think they get confidence.
Yeah. Last question, Coach. What advice would you give to coaches who are inheriting a losing program and looking to turn it around? What would be the one thing you would want to tell them?
Yeah. So, I mean, go in, right, understanding that there's reasons for everything, right? If the team went 0-10, there's reasons, and you got to figure out what those reasons are, right? Like, and all programs are different, all areas are different, right? The reason why Santa Ana was not successful before I got there was way different than the reasons of why Marina wasn't successful.
Yeah.
And understanding those obstacles now allows me to not just attack everything, but be more direct. And knowing those also allows me to be more direct in my conversations with the kids, with the players, the teachers, the parents. Instead of just asking broad questions, well, I'm asking questions that I already kind of know the answer to.
Yeah.
So that way I'm not having our conversations to figure out what I need to know.
Yeah.
I already did a lot of pre-research on so that way my conversations can be much more precise and much more relevant to what I need to know instead of just asking nothing or random things that I looked up.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, great, Coach. Oh, I appreciate this. I'm so happy to have had the time to interview you, and I can't wait to see what Marina does in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Hey, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. We'll schedule our spring ball or a couple months.
Thanks so much, Coach.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Turnaround Series presented by CoachTube. Big thanks to our guests for sharing their insight on what it takes to rebuild a program and create a winning culture. Remember, if you're working to turn things around, having proven strategies and the right resources is a game changer. That's where CoachTube comes in. It's a technology platform designed to connect you with on-demand courses from top coaches, state associations, and charitable organizations. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading your team to success. And if you're a coach with knowledge to share, CoachTube makes it easy to create and distribute your own training content. Teach what you know, help other coaches, and build your brand. Visit CoachTube.com to explore courses or reach out to me, Keith, at CoachTube if you're ready to share your expertise. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and join us next time for more insights from the best in the game.